Hello, and welcome to Somewhat Damaged. Don't worry, you're in the right place. I'm still your host, Greg Alperin, and while the name may have changed, the unhinged and unfiltered comedy stays the same. Sit back, relax, and listen to the hot and fresh new episode. Buckle up. You got some good deck there. Is that a pillow or is that an actual guitar?
That's a pillow that I made in middle school. I sewed it for home economics.
Shut up.
Come
What?
on.
19? No, you didn't make that in 1985, did you?
Dude, I don't know. Yeah, I'm 1,000, bro. I don't know what to tell you, man. I'm old as shit. Yeah.
Bro.
For the record, so am I. It's all good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can't pretend otherwise because it doesn't. I can't try to know what's cool, hip, or young. I don't know.
I at least do 2 hours TikTok a day to make sure that I'm hip and cool.
Oh, dude, my cousin was coming to visit. I'm from Illinois. My cousin lives in Illinois. She's got a 16-year-old daughter, and her daughter was bringing a friend. So her husband, her daughter, and her friend, 2 16-year-old girls. She's like, we'll just go around Hollywood. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, shit, I don't know what 16-year-old girls like to do in Hollywood. So I started to Google it. And then I was like, nah, don't Google that. I don't want
That's
that on my
weird.
Where do 16-year-old girls hang out? Like, no. Because at first I was like, kids, 16-year-old kids. And then I was like, I was like, you know what? I'll just drive them to where I think is cool and they can tell me I'm old and weird.
Just drop them off at the Grove. It's fine. And they'll figure it out from there.
Dude, I took them to the Rainbow. They were like, what?
Did you make them eat pizza?
No, actually, they ordered whatever they wanted, but I do like the pizza there.
Yeah, it's funny. I know the pizza gets shit on, but I mean, it's like, if you're gonna do it, you may as well eat the pizza.
Yeah, you're not there because you're like, this is the best pizza I've ever had. You're like there because, oh my God, is that Sebastian Bach throwing up? What is that?
Yeah, right. I mean, it's edible.
No, he's just going through the trash again.
Dude, I'm not trying to shit on Sebastian Bach. I like that guy. I don't know. First,
This is all unusable. Fuck.
My audio or yours?
I couldn't see John throughout.
You guys are breaking up on me real bad.
Oh, all right, you're back.
Oh, you're back. You guys were all gone.
Yeah,
you were gone too. I like you had this like amazing punchline and like we had nothing on it. I'm like, fuck.
No, go back. I want to know what you were going to say because we lost you after Sebastian Bach. So what was your thing? I'm not shitting on Sebastian Bach.
Yeah, I have no problem with the guy. I like Skid Row. Like growing up, I thought they were all right, And we brushed shoulders at the Rainbow one night, but I was super hammered, and I was like, "Hey man, I'm a really big fan of Skid Row." And he was like, "Cool, thanks, man." But he was also probably equally as hammered. But my friend was like, dude, it looked like you were going to grope Sebastian Bach. That was weird.
Well, Sebastian was probably drinking, I would bet, a glass of red wine, and you were probably deep into a bunch of Miller Lights.
That was a good call there. Yeah, probably. if I was out at the Rainbow at that time, it probably would have been Miller Lights or Pabst. Yeah,
PBRs.
Sure. Yeah.
It's funny. I love the Rainbow. I love it. Like, I spent a lot of time there, and it's definitely a place I try to hit whenever I'm in, up on that side of Sunset. But it's just one of those places that you just go in and you can't not have a good time in that place. You can't not.
Yeah. And just to know, like, for me, there's a lot of that, like, even though I wasn't there for the big things, like the nostalgia of that place. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I met Lemmy in that bar. Like, yeah. He asked me if he could play Miss Pac-Man when I was done. And I was like, oh, what? Like, I mean, I love Motorhead. So like, for me, the music, that era that kind of place represents,
oh, totally.
With like Gazzari's or the Key Club or whatever it's called now right there. And like, I mean, that there's just like, it's so much of my youth. Like, I mean, dude, when I heard Shout at the Devil, I lost my fucking mind. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, what is that? Like, it was so good, dude. I loved it, man. I so much.
Yeah, I'm the exact same way. It's same music to me is same era of music is what I grew up on, and was lucky to spend a lot of time in Southern California around that time.
Oh,
So
see, you're lucky, dude.
yeah,
You're
I
lucky. I
know,
mean,
I know.
that's the kind of place. I'm just looking through Ripped magazine, reading Circus, like, oh,
Yep.
what? The rainbow whiskey, like you're like,
Yeah, it's amazing. I
just
used to spend like when I was there when I was a teenager. I couldn't drive. I would make or ask my parents to drop me off at Tower Records on Sunset, and I would just hang out in Tower Records for hours,
dude,
hours.
how could you get lost in that place? Like,
Yeah, and looking through and listening to music, and then seeing all the people coming in and out, and then walking up and down. I mean, those are some of the best, like some of my best memories as a kid. Like all the time I spent on the Strip during that period.
and I don't know, like, I don't know if it did this for you, but it kind of like you're a kid, you're able to see it. Did it give you any kind of like, oh, this is something that you can actually do? Like you can come here and because like I was so far removed. I was like, you can't like, yeah, I played guitar. Yeah, I was in some bands, but I wasn't like, you can't go to LA and make it. Like
Yeah,
that's
it's funny.
impossible.
I never had any like, and me and John talk about this all the time. Like, I never had the be on stage itch. Like, that was never my thing. I played in bands all my teenage years and a little in college, and then even in my latter part of my 20s. But it was almost by like default. Like someone would say, "Hey, you want to do this?" I'm like, "Sure, whatever. I got nothing to do Friday." And next thing I know, I'm in a band for 6 months. But I never had that itch to like jump up on stage and really do that. And the same thing with like comedy. Like I mean, we're around a shit ton. John books, a premier club in the city, and we do shows together and all over the place. But it's not like I have that itch to be up on stage. So I never had that like, oh, I wish I could do that. I'd rather be in the audience, like watching guys who are like melting your face, like melt your face.
Dude, but even that, like it just didn't, that even to be like in a like watching Motorhead at the Whiskey or something didn't seem like an attainable thing. You know what I mean? Like but I get what you're saying, but like I just feel, and I've been thinking about this since oh, sorry, John, were you gonna say something?
No. Go ahead, John.
Do you guys like Van Halen?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So right, if you don't, I gotta say, man, that's cool having a gray heart that beats once a year. Good for you. Good luck with that. But I've been thinking about this like almost daily. I think about this specific thing since I found out Eddie Van Halen passed away on my way to Yosemite. I was in the best mood, and it was like I heard it on the radio. I was like, what the fuck? And since that day, every day after that, I've been thinking like, imagine being a guy in 1977. You're like 17, 18 years old. You're the guy in your town. You don't live in Southern California. You've never been to Southern California. You're like how I grew up. You're in a small town in the Midwest. You read the Circus magazine, but you go to the record store, you buy all the records, all the songs, all the music. Everyone comes to you with their, hey, who's in this band? And what's that? You're that guy, right? And then you're just smoking a joint like before high school one day in your buddy's car. And he's like, oh, let's put in this new 8-track that my older brother gave me or whatever. And it's Running with the Devil. Yeah. You've never heard of Van Halen, and you've never heard Eddie Van Halen, and you didn't know about Southern California and Pasadena, and all of a sudden you're listening to Running with the Devil, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, cool, man, cool. And then Eruption.
Yeah.
I don't know what do you, I feel like I would like start screaming, cut my dick off, throw it in a river. I don't know. Like I would you're like, oh yeah, I know every guitar player. And then you hear like a new way, like we've heard Jimmy Page, we've heard, at that point, like Black Sabbath, like there's like this to hear Eddie Van Halen for the first time and not have ever, because I heard him when I was in 4th grade, 1984.
Right.
Then I went backwards. It was like, oh shit, there's older Van Halen. Like I didn't, but just, I think about like being that guy, like, oh no, I know everything about music. And then hearing that going, I know nothing. I know nothing about anything.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is that we talk about music like that, and then we look at other generations, younger generations, and they're freaking out over things that we don't consider music. I mean, whether it be that K-pop revolution, whether it was the boy band stuff back in the late 90s. I was in the world of emo and pop punk. And LA was always one of those spots. Like our record label was based out of LA. It was drive-through, but everybody wanted to play LA. Yes, you wanted to do like Gramercy, you wanted to do New York, But when you got to LA, you wanted to play the Troubadour. But I would see the look on like some of these grizzled road veterans from the 70s and 80s, watching them do sound and tech for a bunch of 19-year-olds on stage singing about how my mom sucks and then I'm like,
school's hard. I hate math.
Exactly. And I would just look at these guys and just be like, oh, what the fuck am I doing with my life right now?
Well, I think I feel like as I've gotten older, I've gotten a little bit more understanding of not all music is written for you.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not the target audience of the boy band era. Like, I never was. They weren't like, hey, we're going to get a guy trying to grow a beard in high school who loves rolling his own cigarettes. Like, that was not who they were after. You know what I mean? So I appreciate that. I heard a story about, again, to go back to Lemmy and the Rainbow, but like, he was sitting at a bar and somebody came up trying to start a conversation with him, started shitting all over the new ABBA, had just put out a record, started shitting all over the new ABBA record. And Lemmy was like, well, hey, how many #1 fucking records have you put out, guy?
Yeah.
And the dude was like, oh, my bad, sorry. It's like, just because you don't like something doesn't mean it doesn't have value, either commercially, financially, artistically, however you want to look at it. But yeah, I mean, it is.
Does that translate to you as well, though, John? Now that we're seeing the uptick of TikTok comedians and people that have been in the game for 2 years, and maybe because they're a person of color or their sexual orientation, they're getting that late night spot. Do you still feel the same celebration that, you know, Lemmy is feeling of ABBA that you are for, let's say, I don't know, somebody that just did like Colbert a couple weeks ago?
You know, again, I'm older. Like, I feel like everything is geared towards younger people. And if it's like, there are plenty of and I'm all for the cultural shifts that have happened. I'm all for, you know, mixing up the lineups. I'm 100% for it. And if that means I don't get as many spots as I used to get, so be it. Again, I'm old. It's okay. I can stay home. I don't have to go out every night. You know what I mean? I don't need to be out till 2 a.m. every fucking night. But I feel like, again, it's always been kind of like the gatekeepers are being paid to get what they think puts asses in seats. You know what I mean? And however they have to do it to maintain their job or whatever, that's what they're going to do. And I have never fit into a category that was like, let's get this guy on TV more with his stand-up. You know what I mean? Like, ooh, yeah, we need more of this. So it's not like it was taken away from me. You know what I mean? So I'm okay with all of it. I don't, you know, I do. I mean, do I celebrate it the same way Lemmy celebrates ABBA? I don't know. But I mean, I will say again, not all comedy is for me. I like what I like. I mean, I don't even go out of my way to watch that much comedy anymore. Just almost because I don't want to start sounding like someone else or start, you know, it's hard. Like, I'm from Illinois. I'm from outside of Chicago. If I watch a Sebastian special, I love Sebastian. He's so funny to me. Like, but because he feels like he's busting my balls. Like, I feel like I'm back home and he's like, hey, what are you doing wearing flip-flops? Come on, guy. Like, I feel like that's like, I relate to that humor, you know?
Yeah.
But if I watch like two specials in a row and then I go out that night to do comedy, I get a little bit of that cadence. And I'm like, ugh, dude, stop doing that. And like, I'll see even somebody I've never seen before. If they repeat something a bunch of times, I've walked away saying it. Like, okay, well, don't say that on stage, man, because people are going to be like, hey, that was the guy I just saw the other night. So it is kind of like, I don't know if I'm like a sponge or just easily manipulated or what.
Well, we know where our buying audience is.
Yeah, right. Speaking of ABBA,
at the end, you guys sell me stuff. I'm like, yeah, podcast. I bought a shirt. I bought a hat.
Have you heard about Amway? It's a fantastic opportunity that we'd love to kind of talk to you. After you're going to pitch Primerica. I'm surprised more comedians haven't gone and done like Amway and like Primerica, by the way, just because they're comfortable talking to people and they can do a pitch if they really wanted to.
They're comfortable talking at people. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a difference to talking to somebody when you're on a stage and they're in the dark and you're like, hey, farts, and they're laughing and you're having a good time, you know? But like when you're face to face and you're like having to like, because I mean, I'm fairly social, but I don't really. I don't, I don't,
You
I
don't
don't
like
go out of my way.
you
I
don't
don't
go
go out
to
of my way
talk to
chat
fans.
people up,
Oh, we
you
don't
know?
talk to fans here.
No, it's not even fans, just in general, like everyday life. I'm not like my mom in line at a Starbucks will talk to everybody in line. And you're like, shut up. What are you doing? Stop. But like, I won't do that. I'll just head down. Let's get the coffee and get out of here.
Yeah, no, me too. Me too. But speaking of ABBA, have you heard the new Foo Fighters covering the Bee Gees?
I have not, but I bet it's awesome.
It is awesome, right?
Does he go falsetto?
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, John.
I was going to say, did you see the Bee Gees documentary on HBO?
I did. It was great.
Wow. I mean, I guess I wasn't a Bee Gees kid growing up. My parents didn't listen to it. I was like, I always equated it to the movie Saturday Night Fever.
Sure.
Like, they're a disco band.
Yeah.
And they weren't even trying
to
make disco music.
Yeah. It's
and everyone was like, no, this is disco music. And they're like, hey, whoa, we're a rock and roll band. This is our music. Whoa, what? And then they were like, nope, you're disco.
Yeah.
And then it was like, there was backlash, like on stage, the biggest band in the world. And like, literally like 5 minutes away, they're like, fuck them. And it's like, what? And then it's so bizarre, but the Foo Fighters are immensely talented.
Yeah,
so if they're going to cover something, they're going to do it 100%.
Yeah, it really, I mean, it's like 4 or 5 songs, the ones that you would imagine they would do. And they are pretty true to the band, the Bee Gees, but obviously with a rock influence, a little heavier.
Wait, they do the whole album?
Not the whole album, five songs.
Like, oh, wow.
5 songs, I think. It just came out. Yeah, it just came out last week. And
shit, I gotta listen to this.
Again, I'm old. People are like, don't email them about it.
My parents were huge fans of the Bee Gees. They still are. You know what I mean?
How can you not?
I grew up listening to Saturday Night Fever. My mom would clean the house,
Dude,
and she would put on
like
Saturday
techno
Night
music. It's like you can just get out there and like.
Exactly. I mean, so I need to hear this. This sounds interesting.
It's really good. I mean, if you didn't know it was the Foo Fighters, you wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, that's an interesting, remix of the Bee Gees. You would know something is up, but it's very true to the music. It's rocking. It's like when I went out like walking the other morning, I'm like, I put that on. I listened to it like 3 times. I'm like,
I can just see you with like paint cans, just like just getting your pants just flared out, just getting bigger. Your bell bottoms are just getting bigger as you go.
Right,
getting knocked over. Like, what's that guy's problem?
Right to where I pick up my chicken wings and then come home.
I kind of see you power walking down the street to this, like in these Lululemon pants.
Chicken wings in one hand, 6-pack in the other. Like...
You got 2 paint cans, but one is filled with chicken wings and one is filled with
just no ranch. Really ranch, come on.
Ranch. Spilling out.
You know what? I just came up with the cover art for this episode. It's
you, the paint can full of ranch and chicken wings.
God. I know what I'm doing later for sure. But yeah, it's I love that shit when a band, like, I'm not the biggest Foo Fighters fan in the world. I respect the Foo Fighters, obviously.
I respect Dave Grohl. I don't own a lot of their music, but I respect the shit out of Dave Grohl.
And
all you guys pay for music.
But the different guys in that band,
I'm old.
They're all awesome musicians, from Taylor the drummer, the other 2 guitar players. Like, they're great. So whenever they cover something, it's definitely good. I almost rather listen to that than a Foo Fighters song, to be honest. Like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But, I love that shit when a band takes someone else's music and does a killer cover of it. Like, especially like the Drive-Thru artists, they do all these like pop punk, pop goes punk, right? Yeah. And I love that shit. Like,
dude, I mean, Me First and the Gimmies doing Goodbye Earl, or or all the songs that they do. It's like,
Fat Mike is just a genius, though. I mean, like, Me First, Mad Hatties, like that whole wave. I'm surprised. One of my favorites to go is to Warped Tour and watch those guys play, because Me First would have a full bar on stage, and literally they'd be playing, and like somebody would be like mixing cocktails behind there, and it was such a cool thing. But again, we love these, but there are some people that are just so anti cover, like they just
man, really?
it.
Oh
yeah.
No, dude. I mean, Jesus, go back to Van Halen did a bunch of covers, like, Led Zeppelin did blues covers. Like
Dave Matthews did All Along the Watchtower. No,
dude, U2 did All Along the Watchtower. The Grateful
Yeah.
Dead did All Along the Watchtower. Dead and Company do All Along the Watchtower. Like, it's like
The Grateful Dead is like one of the biggest cover band. I mean, I'm a huge Deadhead too. My music, they're fucking weird,
but
right?
That's true.
And they're like biggest cover band of all bands.
Take traditional music and we're singing "Not Fade Away."
Yeah.
Like they wrote it.
Right.
Exactly. It's like
exactly.
There's so many. Dude, during Black History Month in February, somebody put out a thing like, go ahead if you're like somehow anti-Black people, go ahead. If you're a Dead fan, go take out every song that was written or done by a Black artist. And it was like, I made a joke to my friend. I go, yeah, it's Karina into Long Way to Go Home into The End. That's it. Maybe I Fought the Law. Just like a garbage set. Just terrible.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, crazy. I mean, the Grateful Dead, they've been doing the oldest fucking music. I mean,
sure.
And some of the new stuff, like, I shouldn't say new, at the time that they were doing like Dylan tunes and stuff, they were newer songs.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I was at pre-Jerry dying close to 100 different incarnations of Dead shows between Jerry solo, Bob Weir solo.
That's
shows and
fucking
Dead shows.
Tight, dude.
It was a lot of shows.
I saw 24 Grateful Dead shows straight. I never saw Jerry band, and I never saw Bob do anything that wasn't Grateful Dead until now. Yeah,
no, I was through that whole time period. I would go to the Jerry Garcia band shows in the off tours, and certainly Bob Weir. And I saw Bob Weir and Jerry on the same show.
You saw that show? Yeah. Like it was like was it Jerry and Friends or something? But like the Jerry band played, and then Bob and
Bob Weir. It was Bob and Wasserman.
Yeah.
And then the Jerry band. It's like same night. So you got all the Bob songs, and then you got all the Jerry's. But Jerry's band didn't do a lot of Dead tunes. It was mostly Jerry Garcia stuff, and of course 100 covers. And I mean, if you take out all the songs that were written solely by white guys, it's just their songs. Then the rest of them are cover songs.
Yeah, 500,000 tons of steel. Like, okay, cool.
Anyway, sorry to get off track.
No, so I can talk about the Grateful Dead all the time, constantly.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. You have the same very similar music taste to me. There's not a lot of people that are diehard 80s hair band metal fans that equally are diehard Deadheads.
Dude, I could talk about Rush for an eternity too. And people are like, that's enough with the Rush. And you're like, no, dude, but seriously, they're like, okay.
It's funny. I have a joke that my wife constantly, like I say it all, she now says it because we're driving somewhere and Rush comes on. Right? Tom Sawyer, Limelight, I don't know, something. Yeah. And she goes, now that's a good American band. and I'm like, you're right. They're from Canada.
But you know what? That's better than her going, if you play this in the car again, we're getting a divorce. Like,
I know.
A lot of women are like, I don't understand what this is.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't get that with Rush.
I love Rush.
Yeah, me too.
I love it.
I mean, Rush is like one of those, like, I get into it. I mean, like, listen, I'm a little bit younger, but like, I mean, I listened to like, Coheed and Cambria was one of those bands that had that high falsetto. You know what I mean? So everybody would always compare them to Rush, but there's like, but like Rush is one of those bands that like, it's just a good jam to just, I mean, Tom fucking just jamming out to that, windows down, fucking going down 80. I mean, come on. Like, how can you not, get a drum solo in there too? Oh God.
Dude, people ask Neil Peart, they're like, didn't you get tired of playing Tom Sawyer every night, every show? He's like, Tom Sawyer is an incredibly hard song to play on the drums. So every time I did it well, I was proud of myself. So no, I didn't get sick of it. It was like, for Neil Peart to go, it's a hard song to play. It's like, dude, it's an impossible song for a human being to play then. If it's hard for that dude.
Dude, I mean, unbelievable. Oh, fuck. All right, so I gotta listen to Foo Fighters, Bee Gees, and I'm gonna listen to Swear I Want to Get Out of This. That's what I'm jamming out to.
You
I'm
got
at
to
the
listen to
UPS
older
store.
Rush. You can't like to me like it's funny because after Roll the Bones, I kind of like lost my luster for Rush.
Me too, for a while,
Yeah.
for a long while. And I saw that. Did you see that documentary, Beyond the Gilded Page?
I didn't see
Beyond
all
the
of
Gilded
it.
Stage.
Yeah, no, I didn't see all of it.
It's so good, but it comes up like, dude, Presto and Roll the Bones were like my era of Rush. Like I found Rush, and then Presto came out, and that's when I first saw them live. And I love that album. And they just recently remastered it, and they remastered Roll the Bones. And I think those fucking albums rule. In this documentary, they go into depth on each album. Then they get to Presto and they go, and then Presto and Roll the Bones came out, and they were kind of thin albums. And then they moved past that. And I was like, my head almost exploded, dude. I was like, thin albums. What? Like, I fucking love those albums.
Yeah.
Man.
I mean,
I love them.
It's, it's funny because that's also sort of around the time when music just went, radio went a totally different direction.
That's very true.
Right.
Yeah.
And they were
What year was this about?
89, 90, 91.
90. Yeah. 90, early 90s.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And that's, you came out of, you still had classic rock stations, right? But they were playing a ton of 80s rock, 80s metal and stuff. Then you had your hard rock stations. And then that all got wiped out by Nirvana, right?
Like alternative radio stations.
Yeah. Right? So even like in New York, K-Rock, which was traditionally a classic rock station, they went very much into alternative and like metal and stuff like that. So you lost the radio play for this classic rock, and bands like Rush, which certainly benefited from video and all the classic rock radio stations, and there was nowhere for them to go. Right. So you lost all of that. And I think that that's why their albums, certainly after Roll the Bones, became way less popular to the
mainstream. Yeah.
And that sucks, but still, I think that they got they were way weaker than Roll the Bones backwards.
How does it make you feel though to hear that music though, John?
You know what I mean?
With like, how does it make you feel when you hear like some of the music that you grew up on, and now they're like on, adult contemporary stations?
Oh, it's hysterical.
Dude, that happened to me so long ago. It was like they were like, "Here's the oldies." It's like Jump came on, and I was like, "Dude, oldies? What?" And then I was like, "I guess it's been like 20 years since that album came, And now it's been even longer. Everything they're playing Guns N' Roses on classic rock stations, and like, I shouldn't say classic rock, but classic rock. Yeah, it's.
I mean, Nirvana is being played on the local classic rock station in my area.
Yeah,
and it's like, listen, I'm late 30s, but like even me, I'm just like, ooh, wow, that was 20 some odd years ago. Like it's quite. I'm like,
and that's the other thing. It's like we have to understand that like the things that we loved for what we loved about them back in the 80s and early 90s, like people today who are just getting into music are not going to be impressed or enjoy that because it's all an evolution and we're beyond that now. You know what I mean? You're not really gonna be impressed with somebody who sounds like Eddie Van Halen because you've heard Eddie Van Halen.
Right.
So somebody's gonna have to come out and sound like somebody different, which is good because you want originality and that's what drives creativity.
I could talk about music for months on end. And, I think a lot of what's kind of fucking up the music world, why there's not a lot of these bands that really like have longevity, that really album cycle after album cycle after album cycle the way it used to be, album tour. There's not that anymore. I don't, on a big scale, it's all like if you look at the touring schedule for this summer, right, all these bands that go out, it's like mostly nostalgia bands. Right.
Yeah, like, there's a lot of that.
There's not a lot.
Nostalgia's huge right now.
No, of course, but what you're not having are all these tours of newer bands that are going out with other bands. Like you look at it and like every band is 10 plus years old. I just saw a lineup for Three Doors Down, right? And it was Three Doors Down and like two other bands of the same era, right? Not Limp Bizkit, of course, but like that.
Three Doors Down, Lit, and
Chumbawamba.
Dude, they got knocked out, but they got up again.
You're never going to keep them down.
You can't keep a good band down.
Club thumping maniacs.
Fucking cut that. I can't.
No, it's fine. Stay it in.
No, dude, that's the funniest thing I've ever said. So we're gonna leave that in.
You're listening to another episode of the Somewhat Damaged podcast, part of the Storic Media Podcast Network and brought to you by Corona Premier, now available on draft. It's I don't know, it's weird to me that they're not, like, record labels have gone away, right? They basically have gone away. They're not investing in bands for the long haul, right? So now all these bands and people are only concerned, like I talk to young bands all the time, and they're just trying to produce the next internet viral song, right? Sure. They're only about creating a song and a sound that's pop related, so they can be like,
something catchy that's going to get 1 billion views and 1 million listens day one, and then kind of grow from there little by little, and then cares? But
then people are on to the next one. And it's like, we talk about this a lot with, comedy and like the TikTok sensation of, obviously, TikTok creating comedians, right? And I know you can tell by the roll of your eyes. I
feel like that's just such a okay, so someone's really good at making TikTok videos, but how does that translate to a live performance? How does that and if they can translate it, great, more power to them. If they can't, then they're just internet sensations. And again, more power to them. But it's like, to call them comedians doesn't seem, I don't know, entertainers.
It's not viable.
Maybe?
I mean, I'll be completely honest with you. Most comedians. So I've had my share of YouTubers and Instagrammers that want to do comedy, and they've done it, but you get a huge crowd, but it's their crowd. So what they've been trying to do is just to kind of like keep them, I guess, humble. What they'll do is their closer will traditionally be a long-running comedian, and nobody sticks around for that comedian. They pay their checks and they get the hell out of there. It's a good shot of cash for our system, but there's nobody I've seen in the last 3 years that has come out of social media that I would say is, has some chops, to be honest with you. I mean, the only ones that I think have done decently well are probably the Paul brothers in the last couple of years, but primarily, no, there's no rhyme. I'm actually, you know what? I'll take that back. Chelsea, we had her on the pod the other day.
Chelsea Lynn.
Yeah, Chelsea Lynn. I think she's doing a decent. Oh, it looks like we lost John.
And he's back.
You're on mute.
All right, sorry about that.
That's right.
You guys froze. But you froze in the middle of
the best person that
having a closer.
Having a closer. And nobody would stay for the closer. People are just there to see, these YouTube stars and try to get a picture with them and get that next social media push for their own accounts. But Chelsea Lynn is the only one, I think, in the last couple of years that I've seen that actually has some chops, that she was doing these videos and she's doing well. Like she podcasts well. She does well, she has some respect from some bigger comedians as well, but she's really the only one besides the Paul brothers that I think really have anything right now, to be honest.
Well, back when YouTube sort of like the idea of someone being a YouTube star started to be a thing, I guess, I was asked to go to the Irvine or Brea Improv to feature for a guy who was an internet sensation, but it was John LeJoie, who I don't know if you know who that is. He was on The League. Right. He played Taco on The League.
Oh, yeah.
He had funny videos, music videos. When I told a buddy of mine who it was, because I'd never heard of him, my buddy's like, "Oh, dude, he's on YouTube." And I go, "What is that fucking?" Like, this was so long ago. I was like, "What the fuck? He's on YouTube?" Like, I was my dad at that point. I was like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, I was so mad. But I was like, I got there and I did my thing, and then he went on and he had stuff to do. He did songs. He did, you know what I mean? He entertained the shit out of that crowd. He wasn't just like a no talent guy who just did wacky shit. Like everything he did was funny. You know what I mean? I mean, I sat in the back going, oh, well, I guess that's why he's popular on YouTube. He's good at this, you know?
Right.
So, and then of course he went on and got the league, and like, he's just a very funny dude. So, and very talented.
I didn't know his act, but also, do you know who Anthony Rodia is? He's a New York, Long Island based comedian.
The name is familiar.
Yeah, I mean, he's blowing up. He, like 3 years ago, he was selling cars, and now he's selling out shows in every city across the country, like theaters. And I mean, he's very funny. His act actually doesn't really reflect his social media, right? He's an Italian comedian, does a lot of off the boat, like Italian humor based on his family, and that's what his YouTube and like social media videos are. But then when he does his stand-up, it's just a straight stand-up act, you know, like Sebastian brings in his family a lot, of course, same type of thing. And he's hysterical, but he's blown like 3 years solely based on what he's done on Instagram. I don't think he even does TikTok, but it's more Instagram based, and it's really amazing. And his act is solid, and he's on the road every week, like grinding it out. And he built, you know, I talked about it a lot. Like he built it on Instagram, but he also built it in the old like rock and roll way of just getting your ass out on tour. You know, like the old way.
Well, and that's the thing is his videos drive his fan base to come out and see him. The only reason he's making those videos is so he can get more people. I mean, maybe he enjoys making them. I don't know. But then he gets more people in the audience, and then clubs book him more. You know what I mean? It's like that's why, like, I believe that most comedians, if we could just be comedians, we would. But there's so much more that's asked of us, and so much more now that is out there. You have to be kind of, I do this and I make videos and I do that and then I do this. So for someone to have that already and be working on that is smart. You know what I mean? It just gets him more people in the seats means more bookings, you know?
Yeah.
Right. Oh, for sure.
I mean, that's what we look at. We look at the Polestar line. I mean, if you're looking at, high levels, but I mean, John, where does that fall for you? You know?
Well, I was just going to say, since I've been back doing live comedy, I have kind of a newfound, I guess there was a little bit of burnout, I guess, before, where I was like, if it was a bar show that wasn't good, I was like, fuck this, I don't need to, I would leave. There was just, and not in a snotty way, just in a way that's like, this isn't helping anybody to have comedy right now and do this. And now I'm like, I say this out loud, and I have to be careful where I say it, but I'm like, I don't care how many people come out to see me. I don't care anything about the venue. If there's at least one person sitting down facing the stage that wants comedy, that person is getting some fucking comedy.
Yeah. And
I say, like, I don't care how many people come out to see me. Club owners are like, well, then we're not going to have you here. Like, but they weren't going to book me anyway, so it doesn't matter. But I firmly believe that. Like, it's not, to me, I'm going to use every chance I get on stage to do something a little bit different, to tweak something, to work on something, to bring something else to it, and entertain the shit out of whoever's sitting there.
Right.
So
go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you go, John. Because mine.
No, I just, based off of that, I mean, like, listen, I'm a comedy club operator. I'm not an owner, but there is a little bit of me that, and not a little bit, there's a lot of me that when we have to make something profitable at the club, you need about 10 people. All right, that's admission plus your 2-drink minimum, whatever. When you don't have 10 people in a room, you cancel the show. There's a little bit of me that, and I still feel it now. And actually, I mean, we don't really cancel shows. I've canceled one show, I think, since then. But when you see the look of disappointment on somebody's face who came out to see comedy, to have a good time for that night, and you have to say, no, we can't do that comedy. You got the exact opposite of what you wanted by coming to that club, is that you're not getting that laughter, you're getting disappointment. And there's a part of me that kind of that hates that. I would love to be able to, like, if you're ready, that line, oh, they're small but mighty. Like, I love that concept. The comedy fan in me loves that idea. I've seen the funniest stuff happen, on smaller shows, but the business guy in me is like, I can't operate like this,
I recorded my last CD at Zany's in Chicago, downtown. and I did it's kind of my hometown, not Chicago, but the burbs, but I did whatever I could to pack those shows, right? Then they do a late show on Saturday nights. So it's the last show, the night before Easter. 7 or 8 people showed up, but they sat in the front row and they wanted comedy.
Right.
And they had a fucking good time. Like I made them laugh. Obviously it's a different show. I'm not doing the same. I'm not up there like pumping through material like a robot, but you can then do there's as a comic, there's a bunch of freedom there. You get a little more freedom. Like the club owner isn't like, you better destroy it. They don't get, they're like, look, we got some paying people that might have a couple drinks. Like, can you just get up there? And they always tell you can do less time. And you're like, and I always think I'm gonna, and then I'm having so much fun. It ends up being the longest show of the weekend. And never gonna make the album, never gonna be recorded. It doesn't matter. But just if there's one person there, have the fucking show. Like, just go.
I was gonna not really ask about that. I was looking at your acting credits.
Yeah.
On IMDb, and there's 2 that are hysterical that jump out at me when I was reading them. One of them, do you remember what your role was titled in Nobody Walks in LA?
It's something like shirtless hippie or shirtless homeless guy, or
not close. You played the subway weirdo.
Okay.
In the 2016 Nobody Walks in LA.
Shot on a real subway with real people around, and I had to do it shirtless. It was weird.
So you actually owned the role.
I told him, because I like the guy who directed it. I was like, look, I'll do whatever you want. He's like, well, we're kind of it's like guerrilla. We're in this. Yeah. We don't have any permits. I go, okay. So it was like last minute, like, okay, and go. So we'll take the shirt, put the scarf on. Like, I borrowed the scarves from my wife. She was like, what are you doing with these? I go, I gotta go be shirtless on the red line. She's like,
shirtless weirdo today. And then, do you remember what your role was in Punching Henry?
Oh yeah, stoner dude. But it's a pivotal role. A pivotal role, baby.
Are you typecast, John?
Dude, the first time I ever got cast in a play, I was in 6th grade. It was the all-school play at my middle school, and I got the part. And it was it was a little part. It was smaller, but it was a funny part. And I come home from school. I'm like, I got cast in the play. And my mom's like, oh my God, that's great. What are you playing? I was like, I'm playing an escaped mental patient. And she was like, she starts laughing. She's crying. She calls my aunt. She's like, oh, you got typecast. I was like, I go, what's that mean? She's like, they cast you as that because they think you're an escaped mental patient. And I was like, what? But it was like, I had to wear this fake long beard. I had a toga. I come running out screaming about my dad's a Smurf or whatever. And that was like, the first time we did a rehearsal on that, I came run out. Everyone was laughing. I was like, oh, okay. Cast me however you want. I'll do it.
It's a good segue though into My Death Co., which that was a digital series, right? That
it was
won awards series, and you were nominated for some stuff. Like,
yeah, that was again. I did a show at this place called Bar Lubitsch in LA. I was hosting. It was like a panel thing where people discussed and did shots or whatever. And these 2 guys afterwards were like, hey, we've got an idea we want to shoot something for. Would you be willing to like play a Grim Reaper kind of in a thing? And I was like, okay. And then that same week, I was asked to play a Grim Reaper in something else and asked to play a chainsaw wielding maniac in something else. And the second Grim Reaper thing never panned out. They never called back. And then the chainsaw wielding maniac thing, they needed me to run. And I had a bum knee at the time and I couldn't like sprint like they needed. Right. So they're like, sorry, man, it's not going to work. But then these guys called me like 3 weeks later and we're like, hey, this is the Grim Reaper people. I was like, well, which ones? Like the ones from before? And they were like, do you play a lot of Grim Reapers? I'm like, I guess I could ask. I don't know if I actually play them. But they had I thought what they had was great. I mean, those guys, Sean McDaniel is a super talented director. Ben Hammond is the main writer on those. The web series, we did 6 of them. And I think they're great, man. for me, they were like, you're the main guy. And then they just surrounded me with like really good actors. So it wasn't, I didn't feel like I had to do too much, you know. It was like I had the makeup, I wore the cape, I had the sight that ran around, but everyone around me was so good that it kind of just enhanced the whole thing. And then they shot it very cinematically. And then the themes for each episode are sort of different, and some are more comical and some are more sincere. And there's an arc for everybody. It's just we're still trying to work on it. We're trying to sell it as a TV show at this point, because I feel like there's just so much there that can be, and it's something that we all think about. Everyone thinks about death, the afterlife, what it's going to be, how it's going to happen. You know, I feel like that's something that's never too far away from most people. And I also like to think that this is something that isn't, you know, we think about the end and how like, oh, you know, that's it, we're done. And I definitely don't believe that, you know. I think we're all kind of one connected energy, and it's like waves in the ocean. It's like, when you see waves, some are small, some are big, some wipe out whole islands, some fucking boop, they barely make it, right? But all of them, when they break, go back into the ocean.
Right.
It's the same. The universe is the ocean. We're the waves. We're just, you know, infinite beings having a finite experience. And when that experience ends, we're not destroyed. You can't destroy energy. All the energy that exists in the earth, on the earth, is already here. It can only be repurposed. So there is no real death. You're just sort of done with your form, and then your energy is back out there to come back. And that's why you see like dogs that look like your dad, or like, you know what I mean? Like random people who look like 8 people that you know. You're like, it's just mismatched energy coming back out of the, you know, universe ocean. Sorry, I got a little bit high today.
No, I loved it. I really did.
That's good. So we usually wrap with a segment we do about food. So I'll let John,
I like food.
Yeah, we all like food. So I'll let John roll with it.
So, John, I want to ask you, what was the best thing you had to eat in the last 2 weeks?
Well, okay. There's a sandwich place here called Fat Sal's. I don't know.
Yeah. I know. It's like, is it on? I know the Crossroads. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the investors is the guy who played Turtle in Entourage. That was kind of how they got
that's okay.
But the food is really good, and it's like, it's disgusting. You know, it's like this sandwich has, you know, chicken fingers and bacon, and it, you know. But I get like they have a really good tuna sub, and then they have really good milkshakes.
Really?
And I would
don't they
say,
have a mural? Wait, they have a mural of like Biggie outside, don't they?
Maybe at one of their locations, not the one I go to though.
Got it.
But there's a couple of them in Southern California, so I don't know.
There was one in West Hollywood that I was kind of thinking about. But okay, so chicken. What was so? It was a tuna. Like
I got a tuna sub, which was good. But for me, like when you say what's the best thing I've eaten, at that milkshake that I had it was a usually I get the chocolate peanut butter milkshake. But this time I got, it was different. Oh, it was so good. I can't
Well, you'll have to tune into Speaking Highly with John Huck podcast to find out.
We're going to do a whole episode on milkshakes, which we probably will. I probably will do that because I fucking love milkshakes, man. But it was a milkshake from Fat Sal's in Hollywood.
Did you put a little malt?
Which kind.
Do you put a little malt in there?
Like malt? I don't mind malt. Some people are like very anti. I like it though. I don't mind.
I love it. I'll do a little extra malt in mine too. If I'm going to like Shake Shack, a little extra malt in there.
I've never been to Shake Shack. How are those shakes?
I mean, it's just convenient for me at some point.
You name your place Shake Shack, and then you have shakes. It's like
well, people swear by them, and I think anytime you pop a place up in New York City and there's a line, people are automatically going to think that that's the world's greatest whatever. And it was just good positioning to put a fucking hamburger shake place in a park. Like, okay, not a hard task to get people to wait in line at lunch for a fucking milkshake.
Yeah. I mean, like,
are
essentially,
the shakes big?
No.
See, that's why can't
Serendipity.
The place that's going to make a giant milkshake like
Serendipity. Serendipity is the place in New York City that makes like the gigantic shakes. They have the most expensive milkshake. I mean, like milkshakes are fairly easy, but you know, like everyone's like, oh, I would just go to a Mr. Softy. No, they can fuck those up a lot of times. Like you get those like those ice cream trucks, and yeah, they suck at doing like it's more milk than it's ice cream at some points.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't make a good shake. I mean, Dairy Queen makes a great milkshake.
Dairy
But-
Queen does do a good milkshake, but again,
I mean,
not
come
big
on.
enough.
Yeah, I mean, McDonald's, that shit with after 30 minutes, it
Jack in the Box
separates.
makes an okay shake. They do okay.
Ooh, I gotta check that out. Greg,
they do.
next
They
trip
do.
to LA.
Jack in the Box does have a good milkshake.
Yeah.
All right, dude, this was awesome. We should talk music lots and lots.
Dude, yeah. At first I was like, oh, this is a music podcast. Awesome.
John, thanks so much, man. Dude,
Yeah,
really
man.
appreciate
Thank you
it.
guys. Let me know. Tag me and everything, and then
Yeah, for sure.
I'll promote it when it's
Yeah,
out.
we'll-
Absolutely.
We're in LA soon, so and we're doing shows, so we'll.
Oh, cool. Let me know.
on stuff for sure.
Dude, for
Yeah, man.
sure.
All right, man.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome, dude.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, man. Thank
Take
you.
care.
Later.
You too.